Just on follow-up to that, you're working on both the northern border and a southern border strategy. What's the timeline on those, Secretary?
We will have the northern border strategy by the end of the calendar year. We'll have the southern border strategy within the next month.
That is critically important as we go through decision-making. And as we look at cane eradication, another eradication, mesquite, clearly in Arizona and it's an invasive species there, easy to hide. Needs to be eradicated so that we have a better chance of catching border crossers that first mile in. So I want to talk about cybersecurity, and I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to do this quickly. 2 questions. How do you grade our current vulnerability in this country? A being impenetrable, F being we're in big trouble. And how do you grade all of this for all of you? How do you grade our current collaboration and coordination across executive branch agencies, including DOD? And we'll start with you, Secretary.
Coordination across federal agencies has gotten very high. I would probably give it a B because I never think we're done. And we know the threat is significant. In terms of grades, it would depend on the critical infrastructure sector. Right now, we are focused on energy and critical infrastructure and the attacks on that. That is probably our highest threat right now. So because of its importance and the focus on that, I would give that the lowest grade.
Okay. Director?
Senator, I would agree with Secretary Duke that on the cooperation side, I think there's been dramatic advances and dramatic progress in the wake of a number of the PPD 41 and a number of other things, much better coordination. So, you know, like Secretary Duke, you know, I tend to be dissatisfied with our efforts, so, you know, B minus maybe in that front. On the threats, I'm still trying to get my arms around a lot of them just a few weeks into the job, so I guess I would call that incomplete.
Okay.
Nothing really to add, Senator.
I mean, I think, you know, we always hear there's coordination, and then an event happens, and it seems like no one really seems to know what the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. And so I'd be very careful to give too high a marks to coordination, because I'm not sure we in the Congress understand who's doing what and how it's being coordinated and what we need to do. I mean, we have these one-offs, whether it's election challenges, and then we look at what happened at the SEC, what's happened at, you know, obviously the Equifax penetration, and these have all created incredible challenges. And one of the things we know about cyber is that it is critical that we engage in a dialogue with the American public about cybersecurity and cyber hygiene. And so which agency has taken that on to really begin that process? Like you have see something, say something. Who's doing the actual education of the American public on how they can be part of a cybersecurity network?
That's our responsibility at Homeland Security. We have started it. We're working on trying to resensitize Americans to that need. There is much more to do.
I think we're woefully short. I think, you know, you ask anyone and who has been that person who has been, you know, trying to train their kids on how they can protect themselves. It is incredibly vulnerable because it's as strong as the weakest link. And so I'm deeply concerned that we don't really have a handle on what we're doing in cybersecurity, and that at the end of the day, we'll spend all of our time and our resources looking at all these other threats and completely miss one of the most serious threats that could be pursuing this country. Director Wray, obviously very concerned about what's happening in Indian country, pretty hard on your predecessor in terms of the role that the FBI plays in reservations in my state, missing women across the board. I know you and I had a discussion in the back room. You're working on it. I just want to encourage you to personally, in spite of everything else that's going on, personally engage, because you are the only cop on the beat. for many of my communities who are suffering from record amounts of drug addiction and drug abuse, people who are suffering violent crime at much higher rates, and now a continuation of maybe third-party or third country involvement from law enforcement. So please pay attention to this.
Just a quick response?
Sure.
Senator, I haven't forgotten our conversation when we met a few weeks ago, and it's something that I've specifically raised with my leadership team. We do have the Safe Trails task forces that we're committed to, but I'm well aware that in many ways we're the only game in town in that space, and so I'm looking forward to learning more about how we can be more effective.